Good afternoon, everyone. I'm actually starting with an update, so that job title is wrong. I am actually the Regional Business Director for Johnson & Johnson, and I'll explain that as I talk about my story in a second. So it's fall 2001. I'm getting ready to graduate from college. Everyone's like, you're not going to find a job, right? This is right after September 11th. Everything bad has happened. So my parents were over me being on their payroll. They actually made a very interesting decision. My mom said, I'm just going to send her every single job I can find online and tell her to post for all of them. She sent me president jobs. There was a chief medical officer. That was actually my favorite, but I had a marketing degree. Head of advertising agency. She tried it all. And I was like, Mom, you have to stop. I'm not qualified for these jobs. She said, okay, I have one more though. It's an IT job. I think this one is good. So she sends me the description, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, this is no better. They want an MBA. I just coming out of undergrad, not even done yet. They want someone with 3 years of work experience, someone who can build websites. I know a website. I cannot build a website. So I said, I'm not qualified. And she said, well, wait a minute. You're looking at this wrong. They also said they want someone with a college degree, someone who has experience working with other people, someone who can work with the IT team. She said, you can do that. You've done all that. This is your job. So I posted for the job really because I wanted to prove my parents wrong, right? I will not get this job. I want you guys to know that. So I posted for the job. I get an interview. I'm like, okay, this is interesting. I go into the interview. I'm not going to get this job. I'm not qualified. He's asking me questions about building websites, and I'm making things up as I go. Like Java, www, I don't know. So then I get to a second interview, and I'm like, how is this continuing to happen here? This is odd, but let's go with it. So second interview, all good. Then I actually get a call that I get the job. So I call my parents, and first thing my feisty mother says is, why didn't you think you deserved this? This was within your reach. You were more than qualified. So when he calls to offer me the job, I'm actually sitting not that far up the street at a coffee shop in Atlanta with some of my college roommates. And he said, here's your salary, here's your vacation, here's when I want you to start. Do you have any questions? And I was like, no, I'm not asking anything. Let me sign today so we can get this done. So he sends the paperwork. I rush back to the dorms or wherever we lived at the time, get the paperwork, go, I faxed it back. This is 2001, so yes, we were faxing, right? Fax it back, and I'm like, okay, I had this job, great. Fast forward 3 months later, I start the job. First day there, go to lunch with a colleague, and he says, I'm so glad you're here. He said, they could not wait to get you started, and when they interviewed you the first time, they said they wanted you for this job. So I hope you gave them hell in the counteroffer. It felt like a punch to the gut. I was like, well, first of all, I wasn't qualified for this job anyway. So shouldn't I just be thankful that they gave it to me? And then second of all, I didn't even know you could negotiate. I thought you just get a number and you sign off and that's just where you go. So as I started to move forward in corporate America, I found that that kept happening. So I would go to another job in marketing. I would just take what they gave me. So I started to think about, is this just something I'm doing? Am I doing something wrong? Started talking to a lot of women and people of color, and they're like, nah, we don't ask either, right? Just kind of take what's given and that's all. But then I started talking to my white male colleagues, and they were like, we always ask for more. I can't believe you don't. And I was like, but you asked for more, like what could happen? And one said the most interesting thing. He said, what's the worst that can happen? And so it just really jarred me. So as I moved forward and went to grad school, I spent a lot of time focusing on negotiations, and especially women and people of color and what's happening there. And what I realized, what kept coming to the forefront is deservability. So not knowing what we deserve, or even worse, knowing what we deserve, but not having the ability to ask for it. So the deserve part being rightful, warranted, and the ability, the talent, the skill to be able to ask for it. So when I thought about why is it that we're getting stuck there, what is it about that? What I realized that's holding a lot of people back and holds me back sometimes is the imposter syndrome. So for those who aren't familiar, that's that thing that happens when you're getting ready, even me getting ready to do this presentation. You know what? You're not that great. You're not telling anyone something they don't know. You're not bringing anything extra to the table than your colleague right next to you. Has anyone here felt that? And if you say you're not, you're a liar, because I know everyone has felt that at some time. And it may not be about work, it may be about at home, right? Sometimes I'm sitting at home, I'm like, I'm not a great mother. I know I'm a good mother, but these are the type of things that creep in. And with that imposter syndrome, the good news is if you feel that, everybody does. A lot of times we look at our colleagues, we look at our friends, and we're like, they have it all together. They have everything together, but everybody feels this imposter syndrome. And it's important to know when you feel it, it's important to recognize it because you have to get past it. About 50 to 60% of people get stuck right here. They will never move forward because fear is blocking them. So when you think about the imposter syndrome, how do you move past it? Number one, I say when in doubt, talk it out. So I have been in pharmaceutical marketing now for, I don't know, it's been about 15 years. And one day I was really struggling with a project and I was at home. And I told my husband, I said, I'm really struggling. I'm not a good marketer. He looked at me and walked away. And then I was like, you did not validate my feelings. He said, because that was ridiculous. I'm not going to validate. You know you are a good marketer. You just needed to say that out loud. So are you good now? And I mean, it kind of made sense, right? Number two, write it down. So if you don't want to say it out loud, that's okay. Write it down. This is what you're struggling with, but then also write down 3 good things you know about yourself. And then number 3, this is actually my favorite, fear setting. What's the worst that can happen? So I play this game in my head, and I always say, okay, if I were to, let's just say, quit my job and start my own company, what's the worst that can happen? And in my mind, me and my entire family end up homeless on the streets of Philadelphia. And somehow, but when I think about it and I take the steps before that, do you know how many things it would take for that to happen, right? So that'd be, I would lose my job, my husband would lose his. We get no income for about 3 years. We couldn't sell our house. Then my parents could not take us in for some reason and they would let us be homeless. But when I really think about it, I'm like, all of that is not going to happen, right? So realistically, when I think about it, my worst that can happen is we end up moving in with my parents, which actually isn't that bad because that is food and free babysitting on premises. So think about it. When you're stuck in that situation, really think about it, right? Because your worst that can happen, you'll go there. And that's okay. It's okay. Fear is normal. If you're not afraid of anything, then you shouldn't do it, right? So you will go there, but really stop and think about it. Really, what is the worst that can happen? So, funny enough, the more success you have, the more fear that you think one little mistake or asking for one more dollar or one more day off, that it's all going to be taken away. The good news is when you know what you deserve and you know who you are and you know what you bring to the table, that can't happen. Because even if they do take that opportunity away, there are many more to come. So, when you go past the imposter syndrome and now you're ready to ask for what you deserve. And the important thing to think about, this is bigger than work. This is your home life. This is every single facet of your life. There's 3 things to think about. Be prepared, be patient, and be bold. So the prepared part, when you have an offer coming in from a company, a lot of times we like to kind of hold it in, right? Because we don't want people to know how much we make. People might ask us to borrow $1 if we tell them how much we make, right? And see, right? But what you find is not many people really care how much you make, except for maybe a broke cousin or 2. And so don't tell them, right? But we don't want to prepare because we don't want to have to tell people what we make. So really, take the time to prepare. What I mean by that is talk to people. Talk to peers, because what you will find sometimes is that your peers make more than you doing the same thing that you're doing. Or the offer you got was lower than your peer got for doing the same thing. And one of the things me and my friends do, especially those who are in the same area as me, we share our salaries all the time. We talk about what kind of raise we got, what kind of raise we didn't get, because it helps us to be ready for the negotiation process. Number 2, in that be prepared, make sure you negotiate on your own terms. So when I got the call for that job offer, I was in a coffee shop somewhere up the street, right? I should not have done that. Do not negotiate from your car. Do not negotiate from your office. Wait until you're ready. Now, when they call you, of course, I've made offers to people. I say, here's the offer. We're really excited. We want you to start next week or 2 weeks from now. So can you sign this today? That's what they're supposed to say. But it's your negotiation, and this is your livelihood. So the answer is, thank you. Let me get back to you in a day or a few days, whatever you need to say. Let me sleep on it, and I'll get back to you. Second, be patient. So the process, trust the entire process. What happens a lot of times is, so we go back and we ask for a little bit more, right? And then the company goes silent. So I'll even say in my last one, I was with Johnson & Johnson for years, left, went to Bristol Myers Squibb, and now I'm back at Johnson & Johnson. But it took from, I'd say, January 15th, I got the offer. I just restarted March 27th because we were going back and forth. Be patient. What happens during that time is, actually even my friends will call me like, that second offer didn't come in yet? Are you sure something funky's not happening on the back end? What's going on in the scenes? The company has to figure it out and let them go through their process as well. But what could happen is if we're not confident and we're not prepared, we could call them back and say, you know what, I was just joking. I'm good. That what you offer me, I will take it. That 1 day vacation, I will take it. We are all good here. I'm good. Don't do that. Just wait and trust the process. Number 3, be bold. So once you know what you're worth and what you bring, be bold. Don't let somebody tell you, oh, you can't ask for too much, and people say, oh, well, you got to give a little, take a little. Yeah, that's kind of true, but be willing to be bold. You know what you're bringing, you know what you bring to the table, and also think about your vision and who you are. And I think the best example of this actually came last week with Beyonce's amazing Coachella performance, and I think even the Beyonce haters can say that it was an amazing performance, and if you are a Beyonce hater, what we're not going to do is disrespect my queen while I'm up here today. So we are going to touch in agreement, and we are going to say it was an amazing performance. Can I get an amen? Amen. All right. So with her performance, Beyonce's mom actually told her she did not want her to do this performance. For those who didn't hear the story, she said Coachella's a mostly white audience. They're not going to appreciate the HBCU halftime, the Negro spiritual. They're not going to appreciate that. And Beyonce said, this is what I want to do. And she did it. And she pulled it off. But that's about being bold because it was her vision. And the thing of it is, we love to say that we have haters, right? Oh, they don't want me to do this, they don't want me to do that. Beyonce's mom is not a hater. She's actually, I would assume, her biggest cheerleader. She just didn't want her baby to fail. So that's something to think about. Sharing things with people that may have a smaller goal or smaller dream than you. Doesn't mean they're a hater if they say no. It just means that maybe they're trying to protect you, but you still have to move forward with your vision. I was actually helping someone negotiate. She was with her company. She went from having no reports to, I believe, 8 direct reports. They gave her a little raise, but she called me about a week later. She said, I just don't feel good about this. I feel like I deserve more. I have 8 people reporting to me. That's a lot of work, a lot of time. And by the time she called me, she had talked to all her family members. They all own successful businesses. And once again, her biggest cheerleaders. And they said, you know what? Don't ask for more. You got everything you're going to get. You should just be happy to have this job because you've never done it. So she was ready to not ask for more, but she knew in her gut it wasn't right. So we worked together, came up with a number, rationale. She asked for more, and she got it. And her family was so surprised because they're like, well, they gave you this job that you weren't fully qualified for, so we're surprised that you got more. So that's something we need to think about, is just making sure you follow your own gut. Our family, while we love them and everything, right, they're here to support us, but a lot of times we take that. If she had just taken what they said, she would have not gotten what she was looking for and what she knew she was worth. So this is when you're thinking about negotiations, and we're gonna look specifically at work, but what's negotiable? And what I'll say is pretty much everything. And a lot of times people only think about salary, right? And I was helping someone actually negotiate recently, and when I kept asking him what's important, first it was salary, I kept digging and digging and digging. What we actually came to is salary was actually his least important thing. He was like, I'm actually good on money. But what I need is, we're about to have a child, so I need to be able to work from home whenever I want to work from home. And I need to be able to have, I think it was 2 or 3 weeks off for paternity leave, and that wasn't included. So those are the type of things to think about when you negotiate, not just about salary, it's everything else. I've seen some crazy stuff. Money owed to current company. I've seen people say, hey, I signed on at this company, I owe them X amount of money. If I leave within a year or 2 years, new company's like, sure, we'll take that on, that's a tax write-off, we got that, that's no problem. So think about that when you're negotiating. But also, this is just about work, but think about everything in life is negotiable. I mean, if you go to Target and the shirt's $24.99, the shirt is $24.99. So do not go to the Target salesperson and say, I want to negotiate this shirt, right? So there's levels to it, but when you think about what you deserve, it's all negotiable. So don't hold back what you know you deserve. Make sure you forgive yourself for accepting less than you deserve. We all have done it at some point in time. But one thing to do is make sure you never do it again. Thank you so much for your time.